Best Self Podcast. Do we have a good one today? We have got the legend, Ben Ward, with us today with Forward Leadership. And buddy, we've only really had a couple real conversations, and I'm so excited to hang out with you today and just kind of share our stories and maybe add a little value to people out there. Thanks for being here.
Hey, thank you so much, Brad. It's awesome to be here.
Yeah, man, there's so much to talk about. One of the things that I found really interesting and just kind of LinkedIn stalking you and Facebook stalking you and YouTube. I've been all about the Ward train. You made a comment. You have a line. You make people that are great at sales great at leading, or something along those lines. I thought that was a really interesting comment because I have a lot of conversations similar to that. Can you explain what do you mean by that? Because a lot of people might assume because they're great at sales that they must be great at leading.
Totally.
Which isn't always the case, as you know.
Thank you. Yeah, I love that question. So really, essentially, one of the biggest problems in sales leadership is that somebody really good at sales usually kind of works their way up, right? They make their way up and they get promoted, or they jump and they start their own business. They start building a team. And if you're really good at sales, the natural succession is into leadership. And those are two very different things. Being good at sales and being good as a leader they're just different skill sets, but it's just a natural progression. So most organizations, as they're promoting, they look at the best salespeople, and man, that right there is one of the biggest problems. And that's what I focus on every single day, solving that problem, helping people that are really good at sales become really good as leaders. Yeah, totally.
You hear all the successful peeps talk about that, like high performers versus high potential, and they really aren't the same. Like, you could be a high performer salesman and not be leadership material. What do you attribute that to? Why is it that someone could be so good at selling? Because if you're good at sales, you're generally probably a decent communicator. What's missing? How is that not translating? What's your theory on that?
Totally. The reality is what got you here in sales won't get you there as a leader. And the reason it's a different skill set is so once you get into leadership, it turns in from sales. It's about persistence, and there's a ton to it, right? It's about going after and communicating and painting idea and being excited, and all the principles that come into selling, which ultimately selling is creating value for somebody else and having them take decisive action, right? You want the perceived value to be like skyrocket, and to where you're just like, I have to. And getting very good there, and then flipping that to leadership. Now we're talking about influencing somebody else to be really good at sales, which then it takes elements of patience, which granted, you're going to have to be patient in sales too, but now you're dealing with helping inspire and in drawing out the very best in the people that you lead, helping them to be good at sales. And that's going to entail dealing with problems, and how do you tackle drama? How do you handle hard conversations that need to be had, and be willing to communicate and lead and inspire somebody from stuck and not maybe selling to how do you unlock the best within them? And those are different skill sets.
That is awesome. I'm in the basement of a 100-year-old school right now. I'm fairly certain I could put a hole in my ceiling right now just listening to you. Good stuff.
Love it.
Man, so many different things to go to there. Drawing out the best in others, and I see it. The Best Self Podcast. You can be in any arena. We can all be a better version of ourselves, right? So this is kind of a general, a really broad type podcast, but you see a lot of assistant coaches and a lot of assistant administrators in education, or people that are in positions that where they really make an impact, but they have a hard time. They do have a hard time making that next step because of the, when what I found. So I was a head coach and a college guy for about 20 years, and what I found is that, man, when you go from being an assistant to a position like a big position of leadership, I don't know, maybe you can relate to this even. Like 90% of your job becomes administrative. You're really good at coaching. Like you are a good coach. But now when you become a head coach, 90% of your job isn't what you were doing. It's managing people. It's having the tough conversations. All that administrative stuff. It's not the same.
Absolutely. And I found that there's 4 laws of leadership. That I actually just recently did a YouTube video on this called The 4 Laws of Leadership. And essentially at its core, it's how do you have an effective, hard conversation that needs to be had with somebody you're leading, you're responsible for the result. And how do you have a conversation that is crucial, where you have radical candor, where you're being real with them, and have that go very well? Because naturally those go south very quickly. And especially if there's 4 ingredients that are missing, man, that conversation as a leader is going to turn south. And we as leaders, we experience that all the time. We experience where, and that's especially where somebody who's really good at sales maybe doesn't have that experience and that skill set to be able to the next level of sales. It ends up being leadership, where you're inspiring people to make decisions to step up. And how do you have those conversations effectively? And I dive into that in the 4 laws of leadership. And I'm happy to jump into any of that you want to talk about now. But
yeah, man, I feel like you and I could talk for hours and still not have enough time. I feel like I just went to Starbucks and got myself a green tea frappuccino. I feel like I've had 50 of them just in 5 minutes with you. But, I do want to talk about leadership. I wanted to just kind of give a little background, and we got right into this thing. I didn't really tell people a whole lot about you.
Sure.
You are running forward leadership, and a really cool story, just real brief about you for all the listeners out there. What I love about you is that you didn't just shoot to the top. You're just, and I've had conversations with you. You're just a normal guy with an awesome family. And, you started out earning $7 an hour, and
stringing tennis rackets.
Yeah. $7 an hour, door-to-door guy. And by the time you were 26, you're a 7-figure guy. And you grinded. Yeah. You grinded. It didn't just happen for you. So I think that's because we have anyone from high schoolers to people that are, senior citizens that have retired on here. I think it's cool to hear stories like yours, because you are just a normal guy and you're just like the rest of us. And now you're doing what you're doing, have a beautiful family, a beautiful home, and you're getting to do what you love to do. Like, you roll out of bed getting to do what you're passionate about. And I think I know you're a big Jim Collins guy.
Yeah.
I am too. I love his book, Good to Great.
Same. Yeah.
Yeah. And he talks about in there, there's a lot of stuff he talks about in there, but, understanding what you have a chance to be great at. And anyway, love it. That's your story, though. It's a great story.
Man, I'll tell you what, I've had a lot of failures along the way. It's those failures I've just seen, and anybody successful that I know, that I've studied and learned from, and that I know, man, they've been through tons of failures, and it's what do you do with that failure? And I love it. Yeah, starting out doing door-to-door sales. I did that for my first 2 weeks. I got 0 sales, like none. And almost fired from that straight commission job, and just stuck with it. And here we are.
How long how long did it take before you felt like, because you know you're busting your tail, you know you have it in the tank, but it's just not working. How long did it take before you thought, okay, we can do this? I
Yeah.
mean, I know you obviously had to have some real like internal fortitude type deal. Like you had strength from within, but how long did you like, okay, I really can do this?
You know, it took, you know, we call it the matrix moment. And everybody in the door-to-door sales back then, we called it the matrix moment, where it's like everything slowed down and it's like, and like somebody, because obviously they're gonna say no. Like, so somebody opens the door and it's like no slam, and it's like no slam, and there's this moment where and for me it took about 7 weeks of working 10-hour days in the summer, all day long knocking, where it's like that matrix moment where it's like the door is like no, and I'm like, and I know what to do with it, and I can start to communicate with that other human being and figure out how we can serve them. But it took about 7 weeks.
Okay, well, good for you, man. You had to be grinding because I would consider like 7 weeks probably felt like 17 years for you.
Oh yeah,
You know,
yeah.
that's
And here's I came off of a 2-year service mission for my church where I'd been out like knocking doors, teaching people about Jesus,
mhm.
and nobody wanted to hear from me. So I learned. So I mean, 2 years of doing that from 19 to 21, I like that felt like probably 2 decades. And then my first few weeks of selling products, it, it like it was a different thing that I wasn't as passionate about. It was like a product, like it's not as important.
Yeah,
But you're right, man. It felt like forever, and it just. Luckily, I had that experience prior where I got rejected so often and so much that I kind of learned how to deal with that.
nice. You were almost numb to rejection. Uh, you would, so I heard you talk, you had this good little analogy with weeds.
Yeah.
Uh, and I thought it was great. And well, do you want to, I mean, I don't want to steal that from you. Do you want to tell us what do you mean by weeds? Like weeds, talk about your garden and all
Totally.
that stuff.
I'd love to. Yeah. So, you know, the reality is it's, if you're growing a garden, like inevitably, like just a rhetorical question, like what's going to creep into the garden, right? You have all sorts of stuff creeping in, like weeds are one of the things, right? They're going to come into the garden. So what you got to do is you got to get in and you got to pluck the weeds out of the garden, or those weeds are going to do like essentially three things and probably more, but they're going to take up space in your garden. They're going to look bad, and they're going to choke out the plant, whatever it is you're growing, right?
Right.
Those weeds come in and they start choking. So you got to get rid of the weeds, or they choke out what you're trying to grow. And so the reality is our minds, you know,
Yeah.
you have best self Dalton here, who's rocking, helping us with our minds to pluck out the weeds of our minds, right? Like, and so the most common weeds there's three most common weeds of the mind that we all experience. You experience it as you're listening to this, wherever you are. We're honored that you're here with us. You experience this. We all experience it. Fear, uncertainty, and doubt,
Yeah.
right? And so for short, FUD. So
Yeah.
you got to get in, you got to pluck the FUD out of your brain so you can focus on and grow that beautiful idea, the dream that you have. You got to pluck the FUD out of your brain to get there.
Right. Love it. Pluck the FUD. I've heard that a few times from you now, and I love it every time. Pluck the FUD. Amazing. I love, man, I bet fear, I don't know, you can tell me if you're the same way, but I bet fear is one of the top 3 or 4 things I end up talking about the most. One of the greatest inhibitors of talent, of people's ceilings never getting to work. I mean, everyone's got a lot in the tank, but a lot of people have leaks in their tank, like lowering their ceiling. They could lift it if they'd seal those leaks. And a lot of times those leaks with me when I have conversations is fear. Like people being and I believe fear is a learned behavior. You don't you don't come into this world being fearful. Like you're learning to walk, you fall and bump your head a million times, you still get back up and you try to walk. You keep trying to do so many things when you're younger, and somewhere along the way, something happened to where now you're afraid. You're afraid to take chances. I call it being selectively aggressive. Like you're not even selectively aggressive. You're passing up opportunities because ironically you're fearful. And that fear is the same thing that's like, you look at baseball. I'm a baseball guy. Everyone knows that you're supposed to throw strikes in baseball. Well, most pitchers, it's not that they can't throw strikes, it's that they're afraid to throw balls. And you can tie that to any organization. Like they're afraid to push the envelope. Basketball, I love it when a basketball player talks about how they've never fouled out. That's really not that. If you're never fouling anybody, you're not playing very good defense either.
Totally.
You know what I mean? So, I always preach that we want to make some aggressive mistakes, selectively aggressive mistakes. And we don't want to live life in fear. Where's the fun in that?
Seriously, man. That's so true. I love that. Great analogy.
Yeah. So you I don't know if it was off air or on air, you talked about being a servant leader.
Yeah.
I think that's amazing. What does it mean? Like, what does that mean to you? What's being a servant leader to you?
Yeah. To me, it's I had a servant leader, somebody who I felt growing up, his name, one that comes to my mind, the most prominent, his name's Doug Johnson. And man, Doug was a servant leader. He put my interest, as he was my leader, I felt that he put my interest before his own. And to me, that's when you're serving and you have the best interest at heart of the people that you lead. To me, that's the essence of a servant leader.
Yeah. Amen, man. Very cool. Do you, well, gosh, you just kind of did it. I was going to ask you about an individual that kind of touched your heart, but Doug sounds like he was that guy.
Yeah. Let me tell you another just example with Doug that really touched my life to your question. I'll never forget. There was a hall and I was walking, it was like, there was a corner where he was here, I was over here, and he couldn't see me. And I didn't know he was there, but I'm walking up and I hear my name. And I'm like, and I heard somebody say, Ben Ward. And I froze and I was about to turn the corner. They couldn't see me. And I was like, wait, what are they going to say? And who is this?
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? When somebody calls your name, it's kind of a pattern.
Oh, yeah.
And so I was like, and I listened intently. And I was like, what's going on? And he said, this person said, that Ben Ward, I kid you not, that Ben Ward, I would invest in stock in Ben Ward. And I was like,
Yeah.
what? First I'm like, who is this? And then I listened to him talk more. I'm like, and I was a punk kid trying to figure out who I was. This is when I was in high school. And it was Doug Johnson talking to another leader. And
wow.
Man, best self Dalton, dude. What do you think I did when I was in his presence from then on? How did I show up when I was in Doug Johnson's presence?
Man, you were eager to learn. You were going to do anything you could to add value to anybody around you, likely just being inspired by that guy. Yeah. Incredible. I can see where that would be like a springboard to your entire life.
It changed my life, man. It created an identity for myself as I'm trying to figure out who I was, that hey, this person believed in me. And the thing that I found was when I was in his presence, I became my best self. And it makes me think of Goethe, the ancient philosopher, when he says, if you treat a man as he is, he'll stay as he is. But if you treat him as if he were what he could and ought to be, he'll become what he could and ought to become. And to me, that was servant leadership at its finest, with a leader putting, that helped to draw out the very best in me.
Wow, that is amazing. Those kind of things. I mean, I'm still an educator, lifelong educator. I've had so many opportunities to leave and just do full-time, this or full-time other stuff. And I just love kids too much to leave. And
thank you so much for your service to the kids. That's one of the reasons why I'm on here with you, is because as we've chatted, I've got to know you, the impact that you're having on thousands of kids, to help them become great, dude. My hat's just so off to you, and I just have mad respect for you, brother.
I appreciate it. I'm not kidding. Every time when I start talking about kids, especially on a platform, I don't know what it about is. I almost get emotional every time. Like my just got a tingly feeling in my arms. I do love them, but man, it's a tough time to be an educator right now. And it's frankly, a lot of times it's tough to be an educator. You kind of got a chip on your shoulder. A lot of the time, you don't always feel appreciated. Honestly, you do hear more negatives than you positives. But man, every once in a while, you can't see it right now. I don't think I could shift my monitor, but I got a whole wall full of like thank you cards and little tokens like that to kind of remind me sometimes when I'm having a rough day, that I could have someone like you had in high school and remind me that, man, so-and-so, what a beautiful thing you did for my family and me. I mean, it's right there next to my, just stuff like that. It's not at all stuff to thump my own chest. It's stuff to like remind me that and that's frankly, the reason we have the Best Self podcast. I started this.
Yeah, tell us more. Tell us about the Best Self. Even the name too, and how you came up with that, and your passion around that.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear more.
It's always so. Boy, it's kind of me in general. I've always had a soft spot in my heart for the underdog. Always had a soft spot in my heart for the kiddo that gets overlooked, or the individual that you see. You could be walking downtown somewhere and there's someone sitting by themselves. You know that person doesn't probably want to be sitting by themselves. And so, I mean, how many people have taken the time to talk to that guy today? How many times in the last week has someone actually said hi to that guy? Or say hi to that student sitting in the quad at lunch? You really think that kid at lunch wants us to be sitting by themselves? No, they'd probably like to have friends too. So I've just always kind of been that way. In high school, I was voted Mr. Personality my senior year. And I'm pretty sure it wasn't because of my personality, but I had a lot of different circles. And I think you probably got this on your 2 years there serving, and then you've probably gotten to see it a lot with what you do now. You get to see perspectives. And I got to see a lot of that. I got to see a lot of things I probably shouldn't have seen early on in college. And then, I don't know, I've just always, the older I've gotten, the stuff that we were told when we were 6 and 7 and 8 years old, that just do your best, that I almost became numb to. I probably did become numb to. It really is true. I mean, in every situation in life, your best is good enough. Like if you're faith-based, you know that your path has already been written for you. Your only job is to just be your best self. Like that's all you can do. And so, competition, interviews, just big moments in your life, literally your only job when you roll out of bed in the morning is to out-improve the previous best version of yourself. Like I've heard you talk about controlling the controllables. That's right. I mean, we just focus on the controllables. Well, you can control being your best self. Like you could have come on here and be someone completely different, wearing a clown suit and look like some different character. I couldn't control that, but I guarantee you, I would make the best of this conversation. And I've got a little man on the autism spectrum. He's high functioning. He's a rock star. I mean, you'd have to take all of my limbs and knock out all of my teeth, and I still wouldn't trade him for anything in this world.
Bro.
And he, so I don't know, I think all of my, kind of like what we were talking about earlier, my experiences, it just kind of made me who I am. And so then came the Best Self podcast. I basically teach a course that's a combination of leadership, communication, relationships, just be a better version of you. That's what I do. That's what I do for a living. And so whether it be doing this or speaking to people or whatever. And so when, anyway.
Thank you. I have no doubt that people that are listening and watching this right now are being impacted, and hearing your story and what your why is behind this, man, it's super inspiring. And thank you for your work, brother.
Absolutely. Well, it's, it's the cool thing about it. It's not work when it's part of your DNA, right?
Yeah, totally.
I mean, that's the thing. I mean, you're the same way. You roll out of bed. We're extremely fortunate. We get to do something. We get paid to do something that we love to do. It's in our DNA, and we're passionate about it. And I'm sure you've had the same conversations with people that are either chasing the dollar or chasing something that they're not. Man, you can make all the money in the world, and if you can't roll out of bed wanting to be with the people that you want to be with and passionate about whatever, that's no way to live. Yes.
Little girl who just rolled in.
Yes.
And my boy, my boy McKay.
Yes.
And Emery just coming in. What's up, guys? Just on a little. Oh, you open it? Thanks, hon. McKay's 7 and Emery's 5, and they're amazing.
The best. Any better than that? At all.
Thanks, honey. We got a picture. I'm just on a podcast right now.
The absolute best.
Absolute best.
I got to tell you, for all the listeners too, the first time we met, I got to meet your family. I just love it. You've got, by the way, beautiful family.
Thank you so much, man.
Incredible. So blessed, huh?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, hey, bud, we probably got about 5 minutes.
Okay.
Kicking you loose. I did want to talk about, you had talked about there's some genius zones that you really like to talk about, and a couple of them really resonate with me, like culture.
Yeah.
You talk about one of the genius zones being culture, and I am a huge culture guy. For me, almost everything revolves around it. How do you talk about creating a culture that people can thrive in? Can you kind of just, I mean, that's a broad, probably a 50-minute conversation in itself.
Sure.
Can you like a couple things that you feel like are super important in shaping your culture?
Yeah, I love that. Thank you. Heck yeah. So, like culture, for me, what I mean by that, because there's lots of different like definitions and stuff, but for what I mean by like creating a thriving culture is creating an environment where people can thrive, where people can be their best, that people are motivated, people are respectful, they're candid, and that candid conversation transfers into actually people being real, where artificial harmony is gone. So like artificial harmony, what I mean by that is like, it's like, hey, Brad. Oh yeah, Brad, high five. You're so cool. And then I go talk to John. I'm like, John, Brad's such a loser. I can't believe. Right. Oh, hey, Brad. Yeah, Brad. Okay, cool. Right. So that artificial harmony, creating an environment that actually is conducive to success, and that where people feel that they matter, that their voice matters, that they can contribute, and they don't have to have the same the yes, oh yeah, I agree. No, there's disagreement, and then commitment around, people are willing to weigh in, so they buy in, like, an environment that attracts people to become the best that they can be authentically. And I would say that's in a nutshell what I would say there.
Yes. Tactical authenticity. It's kind of how authenticity by design.
Boom. Yeah. I love it. Yeah.
Very cool. Do you have any superstitions? Are you a superstitious guy?
I'm sure I do. Yeah.
I was, I was reading today. There's an Indian cricketer who refuses to put like get new pants or even use like he takes patches and puts them on top of his holes in his pants, and sometimes they're used patches because he's just being superstitious. I wasn't curious. I was curious. We have a lot of listeners in that part of the world, so I was curious. Anyway.
So one thing that comes to my mind is a friend of mine, Eric Weddle. He played football for a long time.
For Utah.
Yeah, yeah. And then he played San Diego, then the Ravens,
Right.
and the Rams, and so he retired this last year. But his first, I think his first year, they were on a winning streak, and like so he had this headband and like wristbands. So he like wouldn't change them,
Oh, yeah.
like because he was superstitious and like and he's like, these are smelling so bad, I gotta change them, but I can't. And like it just reminded me like, and years later. We've talked about that and different things. There's some interesting lessons there. But anyway, yeah. I'm curious, what makes you say, is it more fun, or is there more to that question? I'm curious.
No, I'm a superstitious guy because I'm a baseball guy. Like,
yeah,
man, when I played, I would do some really nasty things for a lengthy period of time. If we kept winning, I mean, there's certain things that didn't get washed for a while. I mean, I wasn't gonna. You never mess with a streak, so
don't mess with the streak.
Yeah, don't mess with it. So, yeah. Okay, buddy. Well, I got one more. I got two more questions for you.
Okay.
I'm a big empathy guy. Do you feel going into an interview? This could be a tough one. I don't know. We'll see.
All right.
If going into an interview, you're interviewing someone to come into your circle. Do you feel like empathy or knowledge is more important in a hire?
Man, I love that, bro. You know what? So I was with Brian Tracy about a decade ago, and we had a chance we sat down for dinner. He was doing a training for our company and our team. And so I took him to dinner, picked him up from the airport, which was a really cool experience, went to dinner. And we were talking about what does it take? What are the ingredients for success in sales and sales leadership? And really, you could expand that out to forever. But specific, we were talking about sales. He's like, he said, I have one for you, Ben. He said that the number one ingredient to predict success with somebody who's going to be influential on another person was empathy. And I was like, what? Like, that's interesting. Wow. And over the years, I've thought we talked about it for a little bit, but I've thought about that over the years, and I've found that that's true. The ability to understand, relate, connect, and appreciate somebody else's world and align with them. So then from there, it's almost impossible to align with somebody. If you want to lift somebody, like you gotta align with them, and empathy is the ticket there.
Money. He's Ben Ward. Last thing, buddy, you got 30 to 45 seconds to talk to our incredible, at the time of this recording, we've got 38 different countries tuning in. 30 to 45 seconds to talk to people globally on how they can be the best version of themselves.
Man, thank you. You know, I would go back to what we talked about a little bit earlier. We all experience the fear, uncertainty, and doubt, the FUD. You know, what I would encourage you is what I encourage myself consistently is to get in and pluck the FUD out of your brain. And here's how. Here's one tip in 10 seconds is figure out what to plant. Because if you're plucking those negative thoughts, the fear, and trying to get rid of it, what do you plant? And I have this, and here's one invitation here. So I have these like note cards, and like this is what I did on the doors. I learned this on the doors. I actually learned this string and rackets at Sports Chalet. Is I would take a 3x5 card, and I would write out an intentional thought that was like a quote or a motivation, something that inspired me. And I memorize it, I put it on the card, memorize it, and plant intentional thoughts into your brain. And for me, that's been a strategy to rather than just being left up to the whims of what the world's going to tell you, create very intentional thoughts that you dwell on, think about. And this one book right here, couldn't recommend this more for planting intentional thoughts into your brain. Think and Grow Rich.
That's the one. All right. Well, hey, bud. I mean, I feel like we could do this forever. I really appreciate you, and thanks for letting us in on your beautiful family, too.
So it's been an honor being here with you. Thank you so much.
You bet, bud. Thanks for a great day.
You too.